What do you think should be in an MPR?
What they've done in a month?
Say again?
What they've done in a month?
What the person's done in a month. Okay.
I'd say also behaviors and things that have changed.
Okay. Well, I like this line. The NPR should be rich in stuff and low in fluff. And what do I mean by fluff?
Okay.
Look it up on Urban Dictionary.
No bullshit stuff.
Fluff is unnecessary bull crap. We don't need cut and paste. We don't need month to month the same thing. We're trying to show that the person is making progress directly as the result of our services. So what kind of stuff should be in there? This one is great. His name's not really Malcolm, but I liked how the PM wrote this. Malcolm is encouraged to engage with his community by interacting with others and participating in meaningful activities. Staff support him in making choices such as planning outings, using flashcards. He expressed his interest in activities like bowling, visiting the library, volunteering at locations such as Meals on Wheels and the YMCA. Staff encourages him to initiate social interactions appropriately, and he is prompted multiple times before taking action. I made a couple of adjustments. This is good, but I made a couple of adjustments that could also be used. Use this kind of language as your examples, because when I was a supports coordinator, I would get some, and the people would write the same thing every month. That didn't help me as a supports coordinator when planning for his ISP meeting, because he's doing the same thing, status quo is maintaining. That's good, and we need to do that. That's what we do. But MPR should contain three things. What progress has been made? What's working? What worked? What didn't work? And it's going to depend on the person. Where are they? What are they working on? Some people, you all have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The very bottom step is basic necessities. Food, clothing, shelter. What are they working on? Are they there? Or what do they need to make the next step? Security and health. We have a lot of folks where we have to assure their safety. We have to make sure that they remain healthy or become healthy. So that's where the progress should be focusing. If they're already there, then the next step would be connection. So what are we working on to get them connected to the community? We're all part of a community. Community of PMs here. What is their community? And that is something that they're going to decide, but we have to help them get there. Some don't know. We want to use words like what we did to support them. You could put support. Staff supported him or her to do this or that. I put in there, staff rehearsed these interactions with him. Anything that demonstrates they're learning a skill, that we're teaching them something. Because when it comes right down to it, what the administrative entities, what ODP, what the supports coordinator is supposed to be looking for is demonstration that we are actually providing the service that we're providing. If it's home and community, half of it, 50.5% has to be teaching. And we're doing it, but it's not always documented. So if you're seeing in these daily notes as you're doing the MPR that it looks like companion service, be very aware that needs to change. And it's our job as PMs to help the staff write quality notes, to teach them how. And we're working on some training, specific trainings for that. That's in the works. The MPR also is our document. Blair County folks, we had a meeting with the AE folks, and they were saying, they were told by Focus that supports coordinators were asking us to revise our MPR form to meet their needs. It's our form, it's for our use, and it's our policy to write them the way we write them. It's just provided to them, so I believe that's being taken care of. Nobody's gonna ask the PMs to rewrite the MPRs. That's our form, it's our policy, it's an internal form that we use. We're sharing it with team members and other stakeholders because they need to know what we're doing to help these people progress. So, with that being said, 3 things, 3 P's that you can remember. Progress, first P. What progress did they make? Baby steps count. Put it in there. If they made 1 iota of progress, put it in there. If they regressed, we need to know that too. That's okay. I know it's called a progress. It really is a status. What's the current status? Where has the person improved? What worked? What was successful for them? What did they count as success? And what things contributed to that success? What things did we do that contributed to that success? And why? It wouldn't hurt. I don't want it to be opinions, but it wouldn't hurt to correlate the success with a particular prompt, method, incentive, reward, or punishment. And punishment is used in a behavioral world in a different way. It is something negative that causes the behavior to change, something taken away. We're not being restrictive, and we're not doing anything abusive. What is the person's motivation? What seems to motivate them? Is it outside things, or are there internal things? The other P, the next P, is problems. What problems do we encounter? What are some of the problems we have with folks? Name one. Somebody? Anybody? Dependency. They become dependent on staff, and we're working towards independence. So, what is the problem with the dependency? How do we define that? They're becoming too dependent on staff, and that's not good either. They they won't do anything unless staff initiates it. How do we make them become independent? What could we use? That's something we could put in there in the progress note. In this instance, something motivated the person, and we think that might work to help them become more independent instead of always dependent. Any other problems? What are some of the problems we encounter? Behaviors. Okay, so that could be in there. That's a problem. We don't have to solve the problem. We just have to identify it in the monthly progress note. And then when we come together as a team for the ISP meeting, or internally when we have our meetings where we have our staff and they're telling us these problems, we could better define the problem, because you can't solve a problem until you have clearly identified and described the problem. What information do we need? Do we need to get more information from family members? Do we need to get more information from what other staff notice while we're supporting them? Because we're together a lot of times. Maybe they see something we didn't that will help us identify the problem. All right, but don't look at this task as just being something, okay, so another crummy thing I have to do. I gotta get these done by a certain date. Let me write something, or please don't cut and paste. That's fluff. That's unnecessary BS. We don't need that in the thing. A good MPR notes progress and regression. It's a formal communication of the actual status of what happened during the previous month, what we did. And it's accountability. We have, how many folks do you say we have that have variances?
I'd say in Southwest, we probably have about 5.
Okay?
Yeah.
Those cases in particular, and if they're doing it there, they're gonna do it other places too. ODP requests, I remember requesting service, I want service notes for this period of review, was like even 6 months. I just had to gather. I was reading some of them, but I just had to gather. They went on to the administrative entity and then on to ODP. And ODP looked at some of those and said, I don't know, you know, this isn't the appropriate service. You're not, because they didn't describe. But the monthly progress reports are what we should be using to see if our note-taking is at the quality that it should be. The other P that's in there, so we have progress and problems. The other thing is plans. It can be used for that. A monthly progress report is, what are we doing with these folks, okay? We have outcomes for them. Are we working towards achieving those outcomes? Are we working ourselves out of a job, so to speak, where they don't need us anymore? That'd be a good problem to have. Sounds like from a fiscal standpoint, maybe not, but there's always going to be folks that need our support. And there's always going to be opportunities, and we should look for those opportunities. But bear in mind, there's also threats. And our monthly progress notes can show that we do the job well. I'm not saying it's just because Chuck and Jessica and Emily and Alyssa and Julia are in the room, but I saw that focus made a difference. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come over here. You do it well. We do it well. And I'm glad to be part of this team. When I was a supports coordinator, I pushed for focus to get some of the supports from the folks. We can't serve everybody. Some are not, we can't. We can't serve them. But the ones we can and will do it as the best we can. So once that word gets out there, some supports coordinators are going to think, oh, okay, you know, they're pushing focus again. The folks, they're recruiting. Of course we are. There's a need, and we can fill that need, and we can do it well. Of course, we're going to try to grow this business. That's part of what we do. But part of it is providing a quality service to the individuals to have an everyday life. And Focus gets that much better than our competitors. They do. I've seen it from the other side. So how do we keep that going? Don't get sloppy with the MPRs. Don't let the direct support professionals get sloppy with the note-taking. That's our responsibility too. And not badger them, show them. This can be the example. And if we can't do it from what they're writing, then we need to fix that. The people right here in this room who work as program managers have to be the ones to kind of help them along, develop that skill with them. It's something that can be learned. Okay, we can try to use words in our note-taking. Look for certain things in there. Look for support. Look for redirected. look for prompted, look for engage them in conversation, rehearsal, look for those types of words and teach them how to do that. It can be done when we're doing the shadowing. Hey, I like the way you encouraged him. You know, I like the way you redirected him. I like the way you rehearsed that with her. That was good. And promote that. Make it part of our everyday vocabulary when we're communicating with each other. That's what's going to make a good quality MPR. That's what's going to help them write a good quality daily service note. That's what's going to help them deliver what we're being paid to deliver.
Mark, it's also, I think, important to let your DSP know when they're writing notes, sometimes, and they feel they're running on a bad note, but if the individual's not making progress that makes them seem like they're not doing their job.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, and I think we just gotta emphasize that, you know, you are doing your job, like, it should be, you know what I mean?
Right,
You know, so
right.
I know we struggle with that, where they don't want to write a bad, they call it bad note, because it seems like they're not doing their job.
Yeah, person-centered is something that we should keep in mind too, because we're to be accountable. We have to put the person first, but we also have to tell it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all of it. You know, because how else are we going to make plans? How else are we going to see what services work if we don't know? Yeah, I think it's a good point. If somebody feels like they're writing a bad note all the time, that's not. If it's accurate to describe what has happened during that shift, that's a good note, regardless of, you know, the person was swearing in public and, you know, doing all sorts of things that we don't like to tattle on them. You know, do they still use that word? When people tattle. I'm asking the younger ones. You know, we don't want to report always bad news, but sometimes that's what we have. We may have a week straight of somebody that was in behaviors that had to be constantly redirected. The state doesn't care that we had to redirect them all the time. They only care about, are they learning from it? You know, if that's what we had to do, that's habilitative. That's what they're looking at. Is this habilitative, or are we just going up to the food court, hanging out with friends all the time? I used to think, well, man, that's maybe all they're doing, until I actually, because I only had a snapshot as a supports coordinator, and maybe my notes as a supports coordinator were like, okay, they were all gathered for having their lunch together and having a good time. But I see working with the folks that they don't just sit at the food court. There were folks who were exercising. There were folks who walked that mall. Man, you know, I get tired just watching them. You know? Yeah. And that was coping skills. They were playing games, not just any game. Games that help them develop mathematical skills, basic stuff they need to live. And that's what we got to capture in the service notes. And the only way we can track it is these monthly progress notes. And we may not notice right off the bat that progress is being made. You get someone new, who do we have that's, you know, relatively new to focus?
Chuck Reed.
Okay, so the first couple of months with Chuck Reed, we may not know exactly what his needs are. We may not know exactly where he is in that hierarchy. I'm just going to take a guess and say he's probably, I think he's making connections. So he doesn't have basic needs for food, clothing, and shelter. Those are being met. He doesn't have needs for health and safety. I mean, he's medical, maybe some.
As we're getting to know him, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so he needs health and safety. That's where we can focus. That's where we can put our, okay, what are his safety needs? And what are we doing to help him get it? And an accurate monthly progress report will give both the supports coordinator, because we share them, we send them to the supports coordinators. If it's cut and paste, they're not gonna read them. And even if they don't read them, you know what we can say? We gave it to you. You have the information. You were gonna
I
question?
have a question.
Sure.
So, say they do have a progress decrease. Say they do have a progress decrease.
Okay.
How, for existential circumstances, like environmental circumstances that are not part of their normal, but it disrupted their life significantly for that month. So like, would we just explain all of that in the plan and then what to do, what we're doing moving forward to?
Yeah, if you look at the tail end of that note, you see that the right side. Challenges and interventions. Okay, this briefly discusses problems and plans, and this is a good way to show it. Well, Malcolm in this case shows progress in some areas. What is he still struggling with? Impulsivity, fixation on past negative experiences, and occasional inappropriate behavior. And the staff had to frequently redirect him towards positive interactions and activities. And that's where you would put that. And if I used this one on purpose because this guy, Malcolm, has a lot of outcomes. Some may only have one. Some may only have a couple. But this can be kind of a guide. And I don't put it in there as buzzwords, put it in there as what you're seeing when you're reviewing the notes. So when you want to start to redo your monthly progress report, think, I'm going to be looking for what outcome, the outcome that you're going to put on here, and I'm going to be looking at progress, problems, and plans, and draw that out. A note like this would take probably someone hour or more to write, and not counting just going through the service notes.
You also have to remember that this is one of the I wrote, and it is for a case that has a lot of services.
And a variance.
And variance. So this is why it's so detailed, but this is why we need all of our MPRs as detailed.
Can you go over what a variance is? I know.
Sure. Okay, a variance is required when someone receives more than 14 hours of combined services, and that would be CPS, companion, and in-home and community. So if someone has more than 14 hours of that per day, a variance is required. Variances can also be required for things like respite and services, anything that exceeds the state maximum amount of service that a person can receive. That requires a variance form. The supports coordinator is a collector of that information. So when they ask you the questions that are on the various forms, they're not asking you to do their job. They're asking you to provide them with the information that's necessary for the state and the county administrative entities to evaluate whether that variance should be granted. The first hurdle is going to be, and they are hurdles, because they're barriers to us providing a seamless service. It's to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. That's the purpose of it. Some people, how are people? how are our people? When you go to those expos where they have the little free gifts, what do some of our staff and people do? I want it all, you know? And there are folks like that, that all of us might say that. If it's free, it's for me. If I can get more, I want it all. And there are people who have that mentality, and maybe years in the past, people just let it go. Okay, you want 40 hours of service. They don't need 40 hours of service, but they wanted 40 hours of service because they felt entitled to it. And the state had, you know, the taxpayer dollars are finite. You know what? Because eventually our pockets are going to get emptied, and we can't pay taxes. And they have to use those taxpayer dollars to the best. That's what they're supposed to do. But we have to identify the person's needs and show that. And these are supporting documents for that, for the variance. The monthly progress reports make it simpler for the supports coordinators and the administrative entities and ODP to see what we're doing, and that the person really needs the service, and the service is the appropriate service for them. Not just because we want to fill the coffers at Focus, you know, that's not the purpose. We need to show that we're actually providing the services that are required and are appropriate to help the individual have an everyday life. Put those little flavors in there too, because whether they're truly believe in it or not, we can always point out, hey, this person came from here when we started our services, and now this is how he is approaching an everyday life. When that information is given, they can't argue with us and say, well, no, it's more companion. You know, something that they like to say is that nobody, including us, including the people out in the hallway, the people out in the community, nobody can learn for 8 hours a day. I disagree with that. I think we're always learning. I might sit in front of the television for a couple hours in the evening, but I still learn something, right? So how do we capture that in the monthly progress now? How do we capture that the person is learning? That habilitation, even though there's a lot of it, he's still learning. Here's what we got to demonstrate to the state and to the administrative entities and the supports coordination organizations. We got to demonstrate to them that the person is learning a new skill, acquiring. He is improving a skill he already has, or she. I'm going to say he or she, please. They. Try to make it, what's the appropriate pronouns? I don't know. I mean all of the folks that we serve. They're improving a skill they all have already acquired, or they're maintaining the skill. And that answers your question, Olivia. Sometimes they do regress and they have to relearn the skill. Has that ever happened to you?
One of my cases, he completely reverted. So he was going to a college, was getting a degree, and now he's back to where I'm like just trying to get him to understand Uno. Like every time we play it.
Okay, that happens with us too. You know, all of us. So kind of put that mindset in it. Look at it not as just like, what do I got to do to get this done on time. We need that too, but we need quality. It isn't just about checking a box. It's about demonstrating that the service that is being provided is helping that individual live an everyday life, because they're able to become more independent in learning something new or relearning a skill. If I had to change brakes on a car, I've done it in the past, I'd probably have to go get YouTube video. That's the new children's manual, I guess. And learn how to do it, and learn how to do it again. How are the folks we serve any different? And how do we capture that in writing? Because this document helps us make sure that we're accountable to those. But it also identifies something that's very important to the state right now, especially in Blake. Risk. We all have certain risk, right? We all take certain risks. How do we do that how do we demonstrate that with our folks? What are some of the risks to our folks? Anybody have clients that have a risk?
I have one that will try to get out of the house and just go.
Getting lost. What's the risk?
Going around to the street, getting lost, yeah.
How do we mitigate that risk and do the monthly progress and identify that risk? What other risks are there for our folks? We have a person right now who's trying to take care of an ostomy. What's his risk? Absolutely. And a kind of infection that would be fatal. People with ostomies can get sepsis. It's a horrible way to go. I don't have to ask. I know the staff has more than half the time addressing that risk. And that's important right now. Hopefully, you'll get to the point where that's reversed and the risk will be mitigated. But what are we doing to mitigate the risk? That should be shown. What other risks do people have?
Homelessness if they don't keep their budget, but
Yeah.
balance.
Okay, homelessness. That's a very real risk for our folks. The folks we serve. Anything else? Elopement. What's the risk of them eloping?
Walking out of the traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other risks you can think of? Exploitation, just basic safety. I heard something over there. Falls. Yeah. What are we doing to mitigate risks of falls? Are we staying within arm's reach of the person? That could be in the know. Any other risks you can think of? Seizures. Yeah. That should definitely be in there. And what are we doing to mitigate the risk of a person with a seizure?
Well, that individual is on medication that controls them, but she also carries an inhaler.
Okay. So, that could be in that section, how we are mitigating risks. Choking, big risk, big risk for a lot of folks. All right, so those are important things to include. Any questions? The technical part of it, I'm still learning. How to do it and get it in there.
Get it in set works, your favorite thing.
Yeah. With a computer system I don't have today, I'm working on it, that I'm not used to. I found that I think I'm going to like that a lot better. What do they call it? The Apple system, the iSystem. I think.
Yeah, I have a hard time with it too.
Yeah, but I'll get there. But those kind of things aside, bear that in mind. These are necessary things, not just because Focus says so, but because that helps keep us accountable to those who are paying for the services. And those folks have to be accountable to somebody too. They can't just say, oh, sure, go ahead. They have to be able to demonstrate that, yeah, okay, this is a service. The better we do this, the more likely supports coordination organizations are to kind of send the referrals our way. Now, they always have to give people choice. People a choice of all willing, able, and qualified providers. So, how do we get supports coordinators to see that we're qualified, that we're willing, that we're able, but we're also giving them what they need to make their job easier? Should be a no-brainer for them. Okay, well, if we got, what are some of, Jessica, what are some of the threats to our organization right now?
Focus in general? or
Yeah,
just
focus in
threats?
general.
Some threats like as in other providers?
Yeah.
Or, OneWell, Meraki, who else are Bayada,
Okay.
Blue Angels, or some other providers.
We gotta do it, we gotta keep doing it better than that.
Yeah.
Because the word of mouth gets around. Supports coordinators talk to other supports coordinators and say, you know, I've called Bayada 26 times and I've called Focus and they respond, you know, with a text message or an email or something. I've asked for, and you know, if we keep doing it better, we can't give them this if it's not done, and we can't give them this if it's not done properly. Because, you know, if we give them garbage, they're going to be like, what value is this to me? So what does a support coordinator use this for? I'm surprised at the time the Blair County supports coordinators have to critique our internal document that they even have the time to do that, having been overwhelmed as a support coordinator for several years back in the day. But give me the facts. I don't need the BS. I don't need the buzzword. I don't need the cut and paste. Give me the facts. What's going to help me as the justify the need?
I think the most valuable thing you've ever taught me, Mark, is when we first started doing MPRs, we were asking Mark, as being one of the first supports coordinators, what are you looking for? Show me that you care. Show me what you would want to see if somebody was writing it about your loved one. So remember that, like as a program manager, those are your cases. These are the people that really are relying on you to guide them throughout Focus as a provider. So when you're writing it, put that feeling that you have for that individual into that MPR. And that was the best tool that Mark ever gave me. Show what you, like Jessica, I talked to you, you're so excited because they got a new house or they got a new job. Put that in the MPR. So remember that, like he's saying, not fluff, not buzzwords. Put what you guys are doing. You guys kick butt. You try very hard to help your individuals be successful. Put that in there. That 30 days, what you did, what your staff did, how you supported them. Put the emotion into that MPR. That was the best tool you ever gave.
Yeah, thank you. I'll say one final thing in closing. I was a little, as a sports coordinator, we had somebody who lived way out in the boondocks, you know, up on the mountain, and hard to get there in the winter, hard to find staff near him, and he needed it. He needed it. No family around. His family gone. His mom is gone. His dad is gone. He has siblings that live in other parts of the country. And they are involved in his life, and we got supports. And I was kind of skeptical when the other provider the initial provider that he had said, no, we can't do this anymore. It's too far away. And they said he didn't need it, the service. That's how they looked at it. But when I was thinking, I was like, who can we get? And so just agreed. And it was difficult to serve him. He's in town now. He's in town now.
Yeah, I ended up in a power plant when I went to see it the first time.
Yeah.
I always think I might go. I just was in the back of seventh grade. There's a bunch of electric, like, I don't know what they're called, but the poles.
Transformers.
Yeah, I was just like, Mark, where are you sending me? Greatest guy ever.
Yeah, and he, you guys have served him well, and where he is, you guys went above and beyond stuff I asked you to do. For months you didn't get paid. That's part of what we do. But look what came of that. That convinced me that you guys were the right company for him, because you didn't just drop him like other folks would have said, no money, no service, You guys, the caring is there. And that should say something to everyone in this room about the company we work for, the company that employs us. We're not just, we have employee numbers, right? Do we have employee numbers? We're identified, we're more than just an employee number. We're not somebody that can just be, when someone goes, and they do, we miss that person because they provided something for this company. But that should also tell us something else. We all are recruiting new employees, just with what we're doing out there. People see it. People notice.